Good morning and welcome to the June meeting of the Inland Coalition on Aging. I am Dr. Ben Howdiggy. I am the founding board chair of the ICA, and it's my privilege to be here with you, to collaborate with you, to uh, work on improving long-term service and supports and aging services, disability services, caregiver services, so we can all age well in the Inland Empire. I see folks here from across the Inland Empire, both Riverside and San Bernardino, and some folks from outside the Inland Empire. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We'd love to have you join us on camera if you are willing and able to. We'd be happy to see you and network and connect with you. Before we begin, we've got an amazing presenter today. I'm so excited to have Jax Kelly with us today. He's with the Aging and HIV Institute. I'll introduce him in just a bit, but I just want to do a quick icebreaker, ask you a question, and if you'd like to verbally chime in, please do so, or if you'd like to put it in the chat. My question to you is, what about aging do we not talk about enough? What's a great thing about aging that people, we don't talk about it often, but we should because it's pretty cool, right? Any thoughts on that? Anybody would like to share? What about aging is awesome, amazing, cool, and then we don't talk about it enough? Anybody?
This
Go
is
ahead.
Jorge. If I
Yes,
could jump in on that one,
absolutely.
we just don't spend enough time talking about the transition over into the new realm that exists after we pass. We don't spend enough time even preparing for it happening, but definitely not the beauty behind that transition.
Absolutely. It's one of those topics that we need to talk about more often, right? We need to get comfortable. It's going to happen to all of us. And it's like this conversation on aging, right? We're all part of this community. Everybody's welcome to join this community. Actually, you're actually invited and mandated to attend to be part of the aging community. Many of us will also be invited and be a part of the disability community. And definitely, more than likely, many of us will be part of the caregiver community, right? Either we're caring for somebody, we need the care, or just somehow related to caregiving. So thank you so much. Anybody else would like to chime in, or if you'd like, please put it in the chat. What about aging is awesome, amazing, or just something that we don't talk about enough that we should be talking about? Anybody?
Hi, Ben. This is Carmen.
Yes.
I feel the silence because a lot of times when we think about aging, we don't think about positive things. And so we get stumped. Like right now, we're like, what are the positive things? I think there are many positive things, and just participating in putting this plan together and working with all of you. There's so much potential, I think, and so many possibilities for us to do more than what we're doing and to start really focusing on sharing our stories. There's so many people that have so much knowledge and so much wisdom to share to everyone of all ages. To me, that excites me because when we hear each other's stories, we are connected, and we get energized to do more, and to not think of aging as such a negative thing, you know. So I know there's like a silence, like, what are the positive things? But there's definitely plenty of positive things, and we need to stop thinking so much about the negative and start switching our mindset to more positive.
Absolutely. I wanted to mention just appreciating things more than I used to, right? And when we're going fast, 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 we're younger, we're so focused on things and we may love things and like things and but do we truly appreciate things, right? I don't think I appreciated uh, uh, things when I was younger, but now I appreciate every little thing and uh, yeah, so I think that noticing things in life that before used to pass me by, I think that's awesome about being at this age. I see Rabia put aging is maturity, experience, and understanding. Absolutely. And Lisa, thank you. Lisa from Benjamin Rose Institute in Cleveland, Ohio. Thank you for joining us. Freedom, wisdom, focus on what really matters in the moment. Yes, absolutely. Nancy wrote the power that older adults have that can affect change. Yes, absolutely. So lots of great things to talk about. But this is an exercise that I did here at work also, social experiment, and it took a while for people to get there, but they got there. It's amazing once you prompt them a little bit, it's like, oh yeah, this and that and this and that, and we start thinking about retirement, and we start thinking about grandchildren, and we start thinking about how we've grown and we've and experiencing new things in our careers. I mean, there's so many positive things. Maybe we'll come back to this. There'll be a second question. We'll follow up on this, right? Maybe next month you can come with we can come with more examples of what we can appreciate later in life. Romantic and companionship relationships. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nancy. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining, participating in that icebreaker. Again, we have Carmen. By the way, Carmen Estrada is with us. She is our board treasurer, also the co-chair for the Inland Empire Master Plan for Aging, and our fiscal sponsor at Inland Caregiver Resource Center, the executive director there. Carmen, remind me, are we doing the other announcements first or at the end?
At the end.
At the end. Okay, so we go into our presentation next. Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Well, I am very excited to have our guest speaker, Jax Kelly, who's with the Aging and HIV Institute. Jax has been with us for, I lost count, Jax, several years. You were here when we were first forming the Inland Empire Master Plan for Aging, and I really appreciate all your input, your leadership. Jax has not only helped us to form and develop our Inland Empire Master Plan for Aging, but he's also been a part of the state, the California Master Plan for Aging committees. And so I'll let him share more about that, but we really appreciate, Jax, your expertise, you sharing your knowledge here and educating us a little bit more about aging and the intersection with HIV. And I'm going to let you take it away, but please let's give Jax a warm virtual applause, a warm welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ben. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to the Inland Coalition on Aging for the invitation to join you today. My name is David Jax Kelly. I am the founder, president, and CEO of the Aging and HIV Institute. And I also serve as president of Let's Kick Ass Palm Springs, a community of long-term HIV survivors here in the Coachella Valley. And before we begin, I want to acknowledge something. When people see a title like this, they sometimes assume the presentation will focus primarily on LGBTQIA plus older adults or people aging with HIV. Those populations are certainly part of today's discussion, but they are not actually the central topic. The central topic is organizational capacity. It is about how systems decide who becomes visible, how planning shapes services, how services shape outcomes, and what happens when populations are present, but not fully recognized. The examples I will use today happen to come from LGBTQIA plus aging and HIV. But the questions we will explore apply much more broadly. They apply to anyone who has ever wondered whether the people we intend to serve are actually visible within the systems we build. Next slide, please. I want you to think about the last older adult your organization served. Not a category, not a client population, an actual person. Take a moment and picture them. Now consider this question. What assumptions did you make about who they were? Did you assume they were married? Did you assume they had children? Did you assume they had family support? Did you assume they were heterosexual? Did you assume they never lived with HIV? Most of us do not consciously make these assumptions, but all of us carry mental shortcuts. That is a part of being human. The challenge is that systems often inherit those assumptions. And when systems inherit assumptions, some populations become easier to see than others. Today's conversation begins there. Not with policy, not with funding, but with recognition. Next slide, please. California is aging. That is not news to anyone in this space. The California Department of Aging projects continued growth in the number of older adults. And by 2030, older adults will outnumber children in California. At the same time, LGBTQIA+ older adults are aging. And more than half of people living with HIV in the United States are now age 50 or older. That demographic shift has already happened. Not someday, now. What that means is that organizations serving older adults are already serving LGBTQIA+ older adults. They are already serving people aging with HIV. The question is not whether these populations exist. The question is whether our systems recognize them. Because recognition affects planning. Planning affects services. And services affect outcomes. Next slide, please. For many years, conversations about HIV and aging focused on numbers. How many people? How old? What services? Those questions matter. But I think there is a more fundamental question. The question is not whether we serve these populations. The question is whether we recognize them. Recognition sounds simple, but recognition determines what gets measured, what gets discussed, what gets planned for, what gets funded, and what gets evaluated. In many cases, populations do not disappear because someone intentionally excludes them. They disappear because no mechanism exists to make them visible. That distinction matters. Because if invisibility is a design issue, then it can also be addressed through design. Next slide, please. At Aging and HIV Institute, we often talk about visibility, but not visibility for its own sake. Visibility with purpose. The idea is simple. Visibility in policy determines visibility in services. If a population is not visible in policy, it becomes difficult to measure. If it is difficult to measure, it becomes difficult to plan for. If it is difficult to plan for, it becomes difficult to fund. And if it's difficult to fund, it often remains underserved. Visibility is not merely symbolic. Visibility is operational. It affects how systems function. It affects who gets counted. It affects who gets considered. And ultimately, it affects who receives services designed with their needs in mind. Next slide, please. In 2024, California released the first statewide survey of LGBTQIA+ older adults. More than 4,000 people participated. That number matters. But what matters even more is what the survey accomplished. Before the survey, many conversations about LGBTQIA+ older adults relied heavily on assumptions. After the survey, we had data. We could discuss housing, transportation, social isolation, mental health, caregiving, healthcare experiences. And importantly, we could begin identifying disparities that might otherwise remain invisible. The survey did not create LGBTQIA plus older adults. They were already there. What the survey created was visibility, and visibility created an opportunity for planning. Next slide, please. Policy language does more than describe reality. It establishes what systems are prepared to recognize. What is named becomes visible. What is visible becomes measurable. What is measurable becomes actionable. Those three statements may sound simple, but they describe how systems move from awareness to implementation. If a population is never identified, data is unlikely to be collected. If data is not collected, needs are harder to document. If needs are not documented, planning becomes less precise. And if planning is less precise, resources often flow elsewhere. This is not usually a question of intent. It is a question of structure. Systems generally implement what they are designed to see. Next slide, please. Visibility is only the beginning. What happens next is what matters. Visibility informs planning. Planning informs funding. Funding enables implementation. Implementation shapes services. And services affect outcomes. Well, this sequence may seem obvious, but it is surprisingly easy to skip steps. Sometimes we collect data, but do not change planning. Sometimes we write plans, but do not allocate resources. Sometimes we fund initiatives, but do not evaluate outcomes. The entire chain matters. And the earlier links influence everything that follows. That is why visibility is so important. Not because visibility itself solves problems, but because visibility creates the conditions under which solutions become possible. Next slide, please. This section shifts to a little bit. So let's look at the two examples of visibility in practice. The first is the California LGBTQIA+ older adult survey. More than 4,000 older adults participated and shared their experiences. That created visibility through data. The second example is a California State Plan on Aging. Through public comment, stakeholder engagement, and advocacy, LGBTQIA+ older adults and people aging with HIV became more visible within the planning process. These are different mechanisms. One creates visibility through research. The other creates visibility through planning. But both accomplish something important. They move populations from assumption to recognition. And once populations are recognized, systems have a basis for responding. That doesn't guarantee action. But without visibility, action becomes more difficult. Next slide, please. When populations are named, several things begin to happen. They become more likely to be measured, more likely to be included in planning, more likely to receive targeted funding, more likely to be served intentionally, and more likely to be evaluated. Notice that none of those outcomes are guaranteed. Naming is not a magic solution. But naming creates the possibility of accountability. Without naming, systems often default to general categories. And general categories can unintentionally hide meaningful differences. One lesson I have learned from aging policy is that populations are often not excluded because someone opposes their inclusion. More often, they are absent because nobody created a mechanism to carry visibility from policy into implementation. And that is why language matters. Not because words alone change outcomes, but because words influence what systems are expected to see. Next slide, please. I want to leave you with a question. Who is invisible in your organization's planning process? Not one who is underserved, not one who faces disparities. Who is invisible? Who isn't being measured? Who isn't being asked? Who isn't represented in the data you collect? Who isn't reflected in planning discussions? And perhaps most importantly, who would not realize they belong in your programs? You don't need to answer out loud, but I encourage you to sit with that question for a moment, because every organization has populations that are easier to see and populations that are harder to see. The challenge is recognizing the difference. Next slide, please. To understand what happens next, we need to talk about internalized ageism. Internalized ageism occurs when societal messages about aging become personal beliefs. We absorb messages about decline, about diminished value, about becoming less relevant. And over time, those messages influence how we see ourselves. The result is not simply how society views older adults. It becomes how older adults view themselves. And that affects behavior. It affects expectations. It affects engagement. It affects whether people believe certain opportunities, services, or leadership roles are intended for them. Internalized ageism is not unique to people living with HIV, but HIV provides a powerful example of how those dynamics can unfold. Next slide, please. Many long-term HIV survivors never expected to grow old with HIV. That statement carries more weight than it may initially appears. For many people who survived the early years of the epidemic, aging was not part of the plan. The focus was survival, the next year, the next diagnosis, the next treatment, the next loss, retirement planning, senior centers, aging services, long-term care. Those conversations often felt distant or completely irrelevant. And then, over time, people survived, which is remarkable. But survival created a new challenge. How do you prepare for a future you never expected to have? That question affects how people see themselves, whether they identify as older adults, whether they seek services, whether they participate in programs designed for older adults, and whether they feel they belong in those spaces. Next slide. When organizations encounter someone who doesn't engage, it's easy to focus on behavior. We might observe that someone doesn't attend programs, doesn't ask questions, doesn't seek assistance, doesn't return calls. But behavior is only what we can see. What we cannot always see are the experiences underneath: stigma, trauma, fear, internalized ageism, prior negative experiences with institutions, concerns about disclosure, mistrust built over decades. In those situations, what appears to be disengagement may actually be self-protection, or caution, or uncertainty. The challenge for organizations is learning to look beyond behavior and ask what experiences might be shaping it. Next slide, please. One of the lessons I've learned from both aging policy and HIV advocacy is that we often individualize what are actually system problems. If someone struggles to navigate services, we may describe them as disengaged. If someone doesn't complete intake paperwork, we may assume a lack of motivation. If someone avoids programs, we may conclude they are not interested. But what if the issue is not the individual? What if the issue is the interaction between lived experience and system design? The people we serve arrive carrying decades of experiences. Experiences with healthcare, experiences with discrimination, experiences with institutions, experiences with stigma, and systems sometimes assume those histories do not matter, but they do. What appears to be disengagement may actually reflect a mismatch between systems and lived experience. This is not a personal failure. It is a design challenge. And design challenges can be addressed. Next slide, please. This slide creates an important distinction. You are not, at this point, I want to be very clear. Referrals matter. Referrals are important. Referrals are necessary. Every one of us depends on referrals. No organization can be expert in everything. No organization can provide every service. Referrals are part of good care, part of good planning, part of good coordination, but referrals have limits. A referral helps someone reach expertise. It does not create expertise within your organization. And that distinction matters, because every organization still has responsibility for the experience people have before the referral, during the referral, and after the referral. Next slide, please. A referral is a tool. It is not a strategy. A referral does not transfer responsibility. It does not eliminate the need for staff knowledge. It does not guarantee a welcoming environment. And it does not ensure that someone feels understood. Imagine a person walks into your organization. They disclose that they are living with HIV, or that they are transgender, or that they are caring for a same-sex partner. If the only response is, here's another phone number, then we have solved only part of the problem. The goal is not simply to know where to send people. The goal is to know enough to support them while they are with us. And that is what organizational capacity looks like. Next slide. This statement may sound familiar. In fact, many organizations would consider it a sign of good service. And in many cases, it is. It reflects awareness that expertise exists and a willingness to connect people with resources that may better meet their needs. But I would encourage you to listen carefully to what this statement reveals. We know someone who can help. The expertise exists. The question is, where does it reside? In this model, the knowledge lives somewhere else. A community partner, a specialist, another organization. Again, there is nothing inherently wrong with that. Strong referral relationships are important. But if our primary response is always to send people elsewhere, we should ask ourselves a broader question. What knowledge exists within our own organization? What support can we provide before the referral? What understanding remains after the referral? Because the goal is not simply to know who the experts are. The goal is to ensure that every interaction communicates recognition, respect, and competence. And that leads to a different organizational mindset. Next slide, please. Now compare this statement to the one on the previous slide. Instead of saying, we know someone who can help, the organization says, we are learning how to help. That may sound like a small difference, but it reflects a very different approach. This organization is not claiming to be the expert. It is not claiming to have all the answers. Instead, it is making a commitment to learn, to build knowledge, to strengthen relationships, and to improve its ability to serve the people already walking through its doors. What I find important about this mindset is that it moves beyond individual expertise. Every organization has staff members with specialized knowledge, but people retire, people relocate, people change jobs. When knowledge exists only in one person, it eventually leaves with that person. Capacity building organizations ask a different question. How do we make learning part of the organization itself? How do we ensure that knowledge is shared, supported, and sustained over time? And perhaps most importantly, if your HIV or LGBTQIA+ expert retired tomorrow, what knowledge would remain? Because the goal is not perfection. The goal is progress. And the organizations that continue learning are often the organizations that become most capable of serving diverse communities well. Which raises an important question. What does organizational expertise actually look like in practice? Next slide, please. An organization beginning to think about capacity, an important question emerges. How do we recognize expertise? Or put differently, how do we know whether an organization is truly prepared to serve a population? Many of us naturally look for visible signs. A rainbow logo, a Pride Month post, a sponsorship. These things may reflect good intentions, but they don't necessarily tell us whether an organization has built capacity. The better question is, what happens when someone walks through the door? Has staff received training? Are policies in place? Have meaningful partnerships been established? Is there accountability? Can the organization demonstrate competency beyond public messaging? Because inclusion is not ultimately measured by symbols. It is measured by systems. And systems are revealed through training, policies, partnerships, and accountability. Those are the things that remain after Pride Month ends. Those are the things that remain after leadership changes. And those are the things most likely to influence someone's experience of care. Next slide, please. A practical starting point. At this point, some of you may be thinking, all right, where do we begin? My suggestion is to start with assessment. Before developing a new initiative, before scheduling a training, before revising policies or forming new partnerships, take stock of where your organization is today. What do you already know? What knowledge exists within your organization? What are your strengths? Where are your gaps? Because capacity building is most effective when it is intentional, not reactive. The goal is not to do everything at once. The goal is to understand your starting point, identify opportunities for growth, and then build capacity deliberately over time. The resource shown on this slide is one example of how organizations can begin that process. The American Society on Aging recently released a practical guide for making aging services more HIV inclusive. If you are interested, you can scan the QR code and download it directly. What I appreciate about this guide is that it focuses on organizational readiness rather than perfection. It addresses training, policies, practices, partnerships, and workforce development. In other words, it focuses on the kinds of organizational changes that help translate good intentions into better services. Resources like this can support the work. But the first step is still understanding where your organization stands today. Next slide, please. As you think about your own organization, I'd encourage you to consider these 4 areas: visibility, knowledge, partnerships, leadership. You don't need a formal assessment tool to begin asking some important questions. With visibility, do we know who we are serving? knowledge. Do our staff have the information and skills they need to serve diverse older adults effectively? Partnerships. Have we built relationships before we need them? Or are we trying to create them in the middle of a crisis or referral? Leadership. Is someone helping move this work forward and ensuring it remains a priority over time? Most organizations will find that they are stronger in some areas than others. That's normal. The goal is not to score perfectly across all 4 categories. The goal is to identify where your organization is today and where your next opportunity for growth may be. So as you look at these 4 areas, ask yourself, what is your strongest area? And where is your next opportunity for growth? Because meaningful change rarely happens all at once. It usually begins with understanding where you are and taking one step forward. Next slide. At the beginning of today's presentation, I asked you to picture the last older adult your organization served. I'd like you to return to that person. Now consider everything we've discussed: visibility, planning, implementation, lived experience, capacity, and ask yourself, who might still be invisible? Who might not see themselves reflected in your services? And who might not realize they belong? And what would change if your organization became better equipped to recognize them? You don't need to answer those questions today, but I hope you continue asking them. Because visibility is not an outcome. It is an ongoing practice. Next slide, please. I want to leave you with this. The goal is not for every organization to become an HIV organization. The goal is not for every organization to become an LGBTQIA+ organization. The goal is for every organization serving older adults to possess the knowledge, skills, relationships, and commitment necessary to serve the people already walking through their doors. Because referrals matter, but referrals are not enough. Visibility matters, but visibility alone is not enough. What ultimately matters is whether our systems are prepared to recognize, support, and serve the people they were created to help. Thank you for your time today. I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Jax. That was a wonderful presentation. A big round of applause for Jax. Thank you so much. I enjoy learning. I consider myself a lifelong learner, and so participating in things like this, I just get a joy out of it. Literally, I know. And what I like about presentations like this, what I love about presentations like this, is when they make me think, when you make me reflect, when you make me challenge myself, and I ask myself, what am I doing? Am I doing what I need to be doing? And those are the types of workshops, presentations that I love to participate in, right? Where I can go back and actually do something about it. And I love your comment about being intentional, because if we're not intentional, we're not going to get there. Intentional. I just finished a book called Intentional: How to Finish What You Start by Chris Bailey. And we have to have a plan. We have to think about what we need to do and do more than just referrals. This was such a great topic, Jax. I wish we could have you for another hour. You touched on so many parts of the Inland Empire Master Plan for Aging, the need that we need to work together, not just refer to each other, but know each other, work together, collaborate, build this community of strong knit, competent organizations, so we can all age well. Thank you so much, Jax. Appreciate that. Any questions from the audience? Sorry, I had to get that out. Just really challenged me today, Jax. I have some homework. Any questions from the audience? My question was going to be about how do we start, and it looks like you provided a great starting point with that link to that document. So thank you so much, Jax. If it's okay, we're going to share this PowerPoint with the group here so they can access that information. I highly recommend we all visit that and see how does that fit in with our organizations? How does that fit in with this Inland Coalition on Aging, and how do we apply it, intentionally apply it so we can make sure that everybody can age well. I see lots of thank yous, Jax, in the chat. Thank you so much. Very poignant and eloquent. Yes, I agree. One last round of applause, please, for Jax. Thank you so much, Jax. We appreciate your time here. Yes.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Absolutely. Okay, next on the agenda, tough to follow that, but I apologize. My computer's not opening up my agenda. There it is. Sorry, Janelle, it's running slow today. Okay, I believe it's Carmen. Carmen, do you have an update for us?
Sure. Thanks again, Jax, for the presentation. I think we're at a point in implementing the plan, right? I think, we've created this master plan and we've been actively participating in action teams and trying to get more people to participate. And you pose a lot of great questions that I think that we can pose within each of the action teams to continue to have us move forward. And so they're great reminders of, we've done the assessment to try to identify the people that are not being served within the Inland Empire, or to identify the individuals' needs and what they need. We've created this plan, but there's still more work to be done, right? It's not just creating the plan, but now it's implementing. And within each of the different goals that we have listed, there's a lot of work to be done. And so like Ben, I really love these types of presentations that help us continue to think, right? On what is the best way to implement this plan. It is not just about coming together and cross-referring, but also being intentional in the different activities that we're working on, right? And so, like Ben said, these types of presentations, they make us think, and I think that's a great thing to do, to sit and think and sit on it and figure out what our next steps can be within the master plan, but then also within our organizations, right? I'm with Inland Caregiver Resource Center as well, executive director, and I see several of our board members here, which I'm excited to have, because I know we can then bring back this knowledge and discuss it at a board meeting and be more intentional in how ICRC provides services and how we can also help implement these different things within the master plan. So on that note, talking about master plan and action teams, we do have 6 action teams that continue to meet on a monthly basis: transportation, housing, caregiving, Alzheimer's and related dementias, behavioral health and social support, safety, respect, and equity, and advocacy. We will continue to meet in the summer. I know we've been asked, are we going to go dark? No, we're going to continue to meet during the summer. We hope that in September, the plan is to give an update to everyone on what the action teams have accomplished, what we're working on, what activities within the plan we can start to check off, different projects that we may have coming up. One of the projects that we do have coming up which we shared a little bit about at the last meeting. Is, we were funded by AARP to do some disaster preparedness training focusing on adults over the age of 50. We've started the planning process. And so at the next meeting, we'll be able to give you more concrete information on where these disaster preparedness trainings are going to take place, the partnerships that we formed with the counties and the organization that's going to be providing the training. So again, a lot of exciting stuff happening. We are also working on creating updated marketing material that you all can use to share information about the plan, to inform your organizations about what we're doing, and to involve you more in the process of implementing the plan. So all of that is coming, and we hope to share more information about that at our July meeting. If you are interested in participating in the action team, we have been meeting for a while, but it's never too late to join and to learn. Be very honest with you. If you haven't participated and you joined, there is going to be a lot of catch up to do, right? A lot of notes to read to see kind of what we've been doing. But if you are interested, please send us an email at info@inlandaging.org and let us know which action team you're interested in participating. Elizabeth Bogomil, who is our consultant, is the one that's helping us lead these different groups. And so you probably get a response from her. And so again, if you have any other questions about the plan or implementation, if you'd like us to even meet with your organizations to share more about what we're doing, which we have done in the past, then, encourage you to do that and to reach out. Easiest way to reach out to us is info@inlandaging.org. And yes, and Ben just made a post here on the chat to join the ICA. If you don't know if you are a part of the ICA, again, you can send us an email to find out. Participating in the ICA means you have access to these meetings. You get information about updates on the master plan for aging, and you also get updates on events that we're participating in. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, July 28th. 2026 from 11 to 12, so at the same time, and we hope you join us. Anything else you would like to share, Ben?
Thank you, Carmen. Appreciate that. I think it's appropriate to share our mission statement because we kind of talked about this all along. Our mission here at the Inland Coalition on Aging is the coalition is committed to facilitating systems change across networks and developing improved integrated care and service delivery of long-term services and supports. And our vision is a community where older adults with disabilities, and caregivers age well. If we take what we learned today, if we do some self-reflection, if we're intentionally planning for, I think we can definitely make some impact here in the Inland Empire. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to thank again our presenter, Jax Kelly. Thank you so much. Thank all of our coalition members that have been a part of our journey up until this point. We're just getting started. We're just getting started. We will have an update in September about our master plan for aging. Lots of great information to share in progress, but we're just getting started. We're just getting started. So we hope to see you at our next meeting. It's always on a Tuesday, by the way. The reason why I put the link to join is because some of you may have gotten the link through other channels. If you're not sure if you're a member, please make sure you join so you get all of our invitations, all meetings, all conferences, and things like that. So with that, we're going to end the meeting. Thank you so much. And thank you for all that you do to ensure that we can all age well in the Inland Empire. Have a good rest of the day, everyone.